My F26 husband, M28, has been giving advice to a coworker about how to make their gay son, M14, straight behind his wife's back. Trigger warning, homophobia and suicide. I want to preface this by saying that I don't know how my husband is when he's at work. He works an office job, and I work in a daycare as a receptionist, and we also recently purchased our first home. However, everything I learned came from an email from the coworker's wife that included evidence of conversations between my husband and her husband in regards to their son. Louise and Edward had recently had their son come out, and from Louise's email and the messages she provided between her husband and mine, she has been supportive while her husband pretended, in her words, to be. But instead has asked my husband for advice, while at work and expressed how he isn't comfortable about it, and my husband has supposedly been trying to comfort him and give him advice on how to fix him despite his wife. The messages she sent me showed them talking about it and ideas to talk to him one-on-one without the wife, along with how they're trying to get together sometime outside of work to discuss it over dinner or something. I never knew my husband felt this way before this situation, but I was able to call Louise and apologize and try to comfort her to the best of my ability, although not knowing her well, and she feels incredibly hurt and lied to by all of this, and I want to help her to the best of my ability as well as her son if possible in any way. She said that she hasn't talked to her husband yet, but that she's considering talking to him with one of her parents since she doesn't think she can do it by herself, and I told her that I'm disgusted with my husband just like she was, but from a different perspective of not having kids yet and not wanting to have kids with someone who thinks like this. As of right now, I'm still trying to digest all of this emotionally. But I can't express just how angry I am at my husband, and I don't want to be with him anymore because of it. However, she told me everything yesterday, and I'm yet to confront my husband, because Louise said that she's not sure how she wants to go about it yet, and despite it being hard for me not to bring it up, I don't want to jeopardize her in any way and make things harder, since this is about her safety and her son first and foremost and whatever she feels best to do in her timing. I'm strongly considering divorce, since I don't want kids with someone who thinks like this, but I first most want to help her and support her in her timing, but she doesn't know what she wants to do yet. And to be honest, it's kind of hard to sit on everything she told me and not confront him. Update 1. My husband did more than blindly agree with him. He said that if it were his son, he'd punish him by not allowing him to hang out with his friends, and pulling him out of sports until he got his act together, among other privileges. In addition to this, they talked about Louise and how Edward was disappointed in her support for him, and my husband offered to go out to dinner to discuss her and find ways to fix him behind her back. They also used derogatory words when talking about them occasionally, and while I understand that it was wrong for Louise to snoop, I still don't believe that excuses the actions they portrayed. When I wrote my last post, I was struggling with how I should tell my husband without putting Louise or her son in danger, since Louise said that she was afraid to tell Edward because of his tendency to get upset over meaningless things, and she was scared of how he could react. I was concerned that if I talked to my husband, he would send Edward a text that could completely blindside Louise. But since my last post, I spoke to Louise again. I told her that it was hard to not address him with the news she told me. And she said that she had since spoken to her parents about it, and that it'd be fine for me to address him, since they would be helping her address her husband alongside her. She also talked about how Edward pretended to be supportive, but that she felt hurt to know that he lied. I told her that I also felt lied to in a different sense, since my husband said that he would be fine with any orientation that our children could have when we talked about potential kids. Only for him to be someone else completely at work. But still, I wanted to talk to him myself, since a part of me hoped that maybe it was just an act, but even if it was, I wouldn't know how to trust him and really know for sure. When I spoke to him and showed the emails Louise sent, he didn't deny the messages that she included, but said that I was wrong to talk to her before him, and that he never went through my things, and I thought about that hard. I could have talked to him first, but I chose to call Louise because I was afraid of him telling Edward and blindsiding Louse before she was ready. However, he said that wasn't an excuse, and that we come first. But when I asked how he could say what he did in those messages, and tell me that he was supportive of our potential children having a different orientation, he said that I'm probably not the woman he thought he married when I'm at work, and that I'm being controlling by questioning his work behavior. And he said that he didn't know if he could trust me either and that he wanted space between us for a bit. When I asked him straight up what he meant in the messages and his stance on it, he said that Louise was stupid to support him and that he's tired of how overblown gender topics are. He also said that the boy only did it because it was popular and that he probably doesn't get it and will regret it one day. When I asked him what he meant by wanting space, he said he would inquire about staying with his brother. And I was considering staying with my parents before he said that. But as of right now, he's staying at his brother's, and I've been at my parents for the past couple of days, and they have been supportive and open to hearing me vent. Lately, I've been second-guessing myself a lot, and my dad says it's because my husband tried to shift the blame on me, along with how his real self came out when he wasn't around me, and Mom said that he had a lack of character. I still want divorce because I still want to have children, but I don't feel like I can have it with him because trust is shattered, but I'm also afraid that I'll never get married again, but I'm not gonna let that pressure me into staying. My husband, on the other hand, has turned to social media to talk about me being unfaithful, among other things that aren't true at all, and I feel like he's just trying to get out ahead of it. My parents are already helping me with a lawyer, but for the emotional stuff, how do I cope with the fear of never getting married again, or being looked down on by other people/friends who don't know yet? Update 2. Edward had already started his plan of taking Jake to hang out/try to convert him one-on-one before talking to my husband, and she only found out after coming across their messages a few weeks after he had already started. He also told Jake to not tell her about it. But she had a hard time getting Jake to tell her everything that happened when they were alone, and that included a therapist who she got to talk to him along with Pride resources that would encourage him. However, the reason I'm returning to this is because Jake has passed away, and he passed while Louise and Edward were still in the stages of their divorce. I had the chance to meet with Louise in person as well as her son once, too, and she told me that her parents were fully on her side and assisting her in the divorce process. Edward wasn't thrilled that she emailed me their messages. But she had her parents there when she talked to him. She also said that she had a hard time telling Jake about the divorce. But I want to make the last part of this about him. Jake took his own life, and Louise said she felt responsible for his death and has been really hard on herself. She also said that she was never able to find out everything that happened between Jake and Edward when they were alone, and that goes for the therapist too. She is currently trying to investigate Edward with help from her parents and a lawyer. But, in regards to Jake, I want to say this. I don't think I will ever be able to move on, and part of that is because I feel disgusted at myself for even associating with someone who played a part in this in my ex-husband. It's been hard to do anything on some days since finding out, and I've even been prescribed prescriptions to help me lately as well. It's been even harder on Louise and her parents. But, when I asked if there was anything I could do to potentially help remember him, she said that she wants to encourage others to keep fighting so that the same doesn't happen to others too, and that is what also made me want to write this. Not because it's something that'll brighten up your day, but because it's something that you need to hear. She wants to ensure that this happens to no one else regardless of their gender orientation. So, after some time, she's planning on getting involved in her community. Not just LGBTQ groups, but groups that help children in general. She doesn't know when, as she's still going through a lot, but she wants to really soon. As for whoever reads this, I won't tell you how to perceive it. I believe the strongest conviction comes from oneself and not what they're told. I just wanted to share how she's trying to move on, and she knows that I'm sharing this too. To everyone who commented, I can't tell you how much your words of comfort/advice have been received in the previous posts. Louise is now my friend, and I hope we'll be able to be friends for a long time. She's going through a lot, but I believe she'll come out stronger. Thank you to everyone who took the time to read this, and I truly wish you all nothing but the best. Update 3. I mentioned Louise was trying to work with a lawyer while investigating the specifics of our husband's involvement, but nothing has come from it so far in way of repercussion against them, and we also don't know what was said between Jake and our husbands before she found the messages. If anything changes, then I'll update with that news, but it's been frustrating because nothing's come from it so far. I have since volunteered at a few LGBTQ events as someone suggested to try and somewhat cope in a previous post, and I believe Louise wants to as well once she's past everything. It's really been frustrating to see that nothing's come in the way of repercussions, but a counselor I spoke to said that it'd also be good to try and use that energy to help the community, so I'm trying to do that, although it doesn't always make me feel better. It does sometimes, but the anger comes with coping with how my ex was a different person at work, and I'm still trying to cope with that still. I appreciate the supportive DMs and the ones that suggested counseling. But my counselor's also trying to help me move forward, although it's still hard sometimes.